Damn it. I just smashed my knee on this thing. Awesome. We're good? We're live?
We are good to go.
Awesome. Well, I could not be more excited about today. We are here with the infamous Tucker Max. So, Tucker, for our audience that's very geared towards all health and wellness, for them that might not be familiar with who you are, I could do it, but I feel like you do it way better. Give them kind of like a brief rundown of who the infamous Tucker Max is.
I'm probably most well known for a book I wrote called I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, which spent 5 or 6 years in the New York Times bestseller list and sold millions of copies. And then I've written a couple other books. The New York Times said I invented a new literary genre, and they called it fratire, which is so New York Times because I wasn't in a fraternity, and it's not fratire, it's memoir, but whatever, or satire, I mean, not memoir, but whatever. So that's kind of the biggest thing. I started a company in Austin called Scribe that's been named like the best place to work in Austin a bunch of times, and CEO just won Best CEO of the Year award and all that. What else? A few other things. That's been the main
just
shit,
doing all kinds of stuff. Well, and that's initially why I was so excited. Was I remember going into high school, even to this day, I do not read. I just don't read a lot of literature. But my older brother,
I'm kind of shocked at that looking at you.
Oh yeah,
you look like a reader. Very bookish.
It's all video. I waited for the movie to come out. My older brother's like, dude, you got to read this. This shit's crazy. And I was like, dude, I don't really like to read. He's like, no. He's like, you'll relate to it. Like, these are funny stories. And yeah, reading them, I just remember dying laughing, and it's all we talked about, and kind of map the course of how my college years would go.
One of my friends said I have done more than anyone to get dudes to read except for Hooked on Phonics. Like me and Hooked on Phonics.
Yeah.
So I cannot tell you how many dudes like you have met who are like, you don't understand. I don't read, but I read all your books. They were amazing. And I'm like, thanks.
Yeah. Like, how do you receive that? Yeah. No, it was great, man. They're so funny. And I ended up going to college in Chico, California.
Oh, you went to Chico State?
No, I was I walked on to play football at Butte College, which is the junior college inside of Chico. Yeah. But we all lived in Chico, and it was chaos. And I used to always
I've heard stories though. That place is legendary.
Yeah,
party wise,
lawless.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's what I've heard. Seriously.
I mean, houses would burn down, and no one would get in trouble. We used to burn couches in the street, and because no one could sell their furniture, so we just light them on fire. The fire departments would come and sweep them up, and they did riots every month. There were riots because it used to develop what we called Chico feet, and everyone just walked everywhere. It was such a small town, and it was just, party everywhere in the front lawn. Just, it's what you would imagine a movie would be like. It was. You would have done some serious damage. You'd probably write 3 more books. Just spend a weekend there.
Well, you know what's funny is tons of people are like, dude, I have way better stories, and I'm like, you probably do. You just didn't write them down, right? That's really all I. Even in my group of friends, I wasn't even the funniest or the craziest. I'm just the dude who wrote it down. That was it.
Documented it. And so was that something that you you had never intentionally meant to get into being an author? There was another.
Of course not, dude. I went to the University of Chicago for econ. I played sports in high school. I was in all the advanced classes, whatever, but I was never like the bookish, dorky, I'm going to be a writer. Those people hated me always. No, not in school. I was friends with someone, but once I got out and started writing, all the mainstream corporate media, all those dorks go into writing and they go work for Esquire or whatever, and they all hated me because their perception of me was the meathead who went into their world and beat them at their own thing, right? Which is, but not really. I wasn't that good of an athlete. I wasn't playing even junior college football. I was playing with myself. That was about it, right? And so it's not like I was. It was kind of funny because the dorks thought I was this meathead, and then the meatheads were like, "Well, he's smart, so he's not one of us." And so I was always the dude who was just kind of off on my own, meaning socially. But then I wrote the stories that I thought everyone did this, dude. It was not a thing to me that when my books came out, they're just stories of drinking and hooking up and being an idiot, right? And I can't believe how many people are one, were like, didn't believe that that was possible. And I'm like, it's not possible to get drunk and throw up on yourself. Like what this is, there were a group of those. There was another group that were like, oh, well, this is just what everyone does, which is what I thought. And then there was another group, like especially young dudes who were like, I had no idea that this was happening. I'm so excited. Yeah. And so a whole generation of dudes grew up, and girls, a lot of women grew up like, oh, I'm going to do this. Even they were going to do it anyway. Yeah. They didn't know, right? It was coming for them, but they just thought like I was the guy who invented it, or the one who like, and so I get so many like, oh man, I learned to drink from you and party from you. Like, dude, you would have learned this anyway. Yeah. I promise. Yeah. I just wrote this down. That was it.
One thing I always loved about your book was, so growing up, me and my brother, my dad used to have crazy stories. Right. He was like a drummer in a rock band, like back in the 80s. Like he just, and then he would purposely try not to tell us, and then his friends would. And we just always wanted that. And then when your book came out, I just remember being like, oh man, like this is what we want to do. And I think that's maybe why a lot of people related so much, was it was authentic, you know?
Of course.
A lot of literature now is just so...
most of it is stupid, pretentious, boring.
There's a narrative, you know, there's an agenda behind it. And yours was just,
here's what I did.
Yeah, here's some chaos for you.
Here's my life.
And so how was that, you know, when you first came out with I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, was there quite a bit of backlash too, publicly?
You know, okay, it's funny now. So like cancel culture has always kind of existed. The difference is, when my website came out before the book. And so I was like one of the first ones to do like a blog, and first one to go blog to book. So my site went up in like 2002. My book came out in 2006. And like at the time, the people who got upset about everything were fundamentalist Christians. Oh yeah. Right? Yeah. Like, no, seriously. Yeah. All of the shaming school marm people, you know, shouldn't do anything fun types, they were all on the far right. Now they're all on the far left, but it's the same people and it's the same energy. They've just switched sides, and so I had tons of people who hated. They were the people who were jealous, but they don't count. The ones who are like, oh, you know, you're not allowed to have premarital sex, and you know, drinking's horrible, and blah 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 blah. Like those people were all, like, they still exist. They're just now like editors. Yeah, they're blue haired douches, woke idiots. Yeah. Now before they were they were blue haired but old. They were blue haired because they were so old.
They were trying to look young with their
Like so it's I've seen it in just 25 years. The whole thing completely switched sides.
It's insane. You know, I was talking about that. I always end up talking about that with just different friends. And, you know, I grew up, actually, it's so funny you mentioned that. I grew up in Boise, Idaho. That's where I'm from.
Oh, wow.
And so...
You look like a dude from Idaho. Seriously.
Yeah, well.
If you'd said, guess where I'm from, I would have picked South Texas or Idaho.
Oh, God, no.
Those are the two places.
Yeah, from Idaho. Good old Boise, Idaho. Yes. And we... there wasn't a, like, we made our own fun. Yeah. But it was limited. Yes. And then when, like you were saying, when you get into college and you go and experience the chaos, it's so much better. But growing up in Idaho, I couldn't say a lot of things around certain people because we had that demographic. And then a lot of Mormons too, which, by the way, they can be the wildest ones. You know, you get...
Can be.
Yeah. You get them out of that circle for a day, and it's you're like, dude, where has this been hiding?
I know.
And they're my favorite. And so you know, after you didn't really have the benefit of social media back then as well too. Was there?
Not really,
I think it was just MySpace which
MySpace started in 2004.
Yeah.
So. And like by then I was kind of on the come up, and then Facebook was like 2005 or 2006. And so like I kind of caught the first wave of social media, but not like, you know, Instagram or TikTok, obviously, or no. It was when the internet was still like kind of a wild west. There were web pages. That's where you went. You didn't have the walled garden of apps now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, you know, which do you think that would have, having the tools today back then, do you think that would have done more good or bad for you?
You know, it would have been different because when I started, my goal wasn't to be a writer, right? My goal, I was writing emails to friends, and so like if YouTube and Instagram, let's say, like if the video platforms had been around, I don't think I would have been a writer. I think I would have like literally been like, you know, a few years ago there was that whole group of people that like the DJs or whatever, the people who film themselves at parties, and they kind of blew up on early Instagram. I can't remember any of their names, but like I probably would have been that type,
or
right?
like a blogger, like kind of how like the Paul brothers and stuff.
I would have been, exactly. Yeah. I'd have been like Jake Paul or whatever, like one of the. I would have gone into, because it's way easier to do, and I don't mean that as an insult to video. Like video is difficult, and but it is way harder to develop a skill set around writing, because you got to be a great storyteller and funny, and then you also have to develop a skill around the medium. Whereas if you're going into video, you can hire videographers and video people pretty easily and pretty quickly. You can't really hire people. You can hire editors at best, but you can't hire anyone to like write your shit for you. You got to develop your voice, and you got learning to develop video style and all that stuff is hard and difficult. And so I'm not taking anything away from that, but it's a much lower lift. Yeah. And I would have gone into that world. I'm almost positive had I started like even 5-6 years later, I think it would have been inevitable.
Today's episode is brought to you by ReGen Health and Wellness. The team at ReGen Health and Wellness is devoted to helping patients revitalize, repair, and renew the optimal blueprint of yourself. They provide an individualized and concierge model of healthcare, empowering patients to optimize their health span and overall quality of life. It's said no one can escape father time, but almost everyone can make the conscious decision and commit to living better and healthier lives. It begins with a mindset. They offer both in-clinic and telemedicine consultations. So whether you're due for a routine checkup or struggling to hit your health and fitness goals, go online or give them a call to schedule your appointment today. Yeah. It is crazy how rapidly things change now. Just, you start getting comfortable with one platform or one way of, telling a story, and it's like 10 other things pop up. And the stories are so wild. I do encourage people. I tell people all the time. And once we had scheduled this, I was just telling everyone how excited I was. And they were like, oh, I don't think I've read it. And I'm like, read it. Like, you'll love it. And did a lot of people really question the authenticity of like each story too? Did you get a lot of crap for that?
Well, like I got both. I got people who were like, your crazy story is just an average Tuesday to me. Like, this isn't crazy. And I'm like, okay, cool, dude. Go write down your stories and go make a lot of money. Or there were other people like, this is all lies. No way that, like, there were people who questioned literally that like this is possible. And I'm like, have you never been to a bar? Yeah. Like, have you never been to a party? No, seriously. Those were the types that I couldn't understand. Yeah, there were some people who were like, oh, the stories are fake or whatever. And I'm like, most of the people who got upset about that, I would ask them, like, what do you actually think is fake? You think it's fake that I got so drunk I threw up on myself? Like that? Like, you could walk down 6th Street any night and see 20 people doing that. So what's fake about me doing it, right? I mean, there were a couple stories that some people got all fussy about or whatever. But no, most people, because either they would be my age or they had enough experience, like, oh yeah, I've done stuff like this, of course. Or there were people, or they were like young and they're like, oh, I want to be that dude. Most of the people who were like, either if they were upset about it, they were like, they had their own issues with sex or whatever, or drinking, or they were honestly envious or jealous, right? And so they're they were upset that some dude was doing the things that they wanted to do but weren't doing, Yeah.
It's resentment.
Exactly.
I deal with that shit all the time.
Well, yeah, you have any success in any field, then that's going to happen. Like the biggest chiropractor in Smithville probably gets a lot of jealousy from the two other chiropractors, right? Like, I mean, that's just how it works.
I think it's kind of a sad thing, but I'm totally with you on that. It's a lot of it is born out of resentment. People that wish they thought of it or they did it first, and it's like, and a lot of it too. I've noticed a lot of these really cool stories and things are just very spontaneous. Like there was no actual plan to do it. You just were like, hey, this sounds like fun.
My favorite part is like, people are like, well, how are you like? You have a crazy night every night. I'm like, dude, there's only 20 stories in the book, right? So it's not like I didn't write 8,000 stories because every night was amazing. No, most nights are whatever. But I was one of the first ones to really do any of that publicly and talk about it publicly. And so it's like I took the brunt of all the nonsense, and then all these people came after me, most of which weren't talented, but some absolutely were, and they didn't have to deal with any of that. You know, it's sort of like, oh, like, well, he's just like Tucker Max but gay, or he's you know, it was like or she's like Tucker Max but this or whatever, and then it was like it was easy, right?
Well, the name Tucker Max too has such a good like ring to it because it you know.
Oh, that's another one. There were a lot of people convinced that this one person, no shit. Like went to the like did a deep record search, convinced that was not my name. That like you know that I'd made it up
that
or
was like a stage name.
Right, a stage name. And I'm like, no, dude, my parents, you know, were shitty parents, but they gave me a great name. Like that's my actual name.
Sketchy.
Like I had to take a picture. I didn't have to, but I ended up taking a picture of my driver's license, being like, look, oh yeah, but you got a fake birth certificate and court records. I'm like, shut. Okay, dude.
At some point, you're just like, I don't need to, entertain the same more idiots. Yeah, I can't stand it. You know, when I started this, it was just a silly shout out page. And now, you know, like I was talking to you about earlier, we're doing an expo. Yeah. And I've only had this for about 3.5 years. And man, do I get some shit from people that are like, oh, there's other ones like that. Or, you know, you could be doing this, right? And you're like, and whatever.
Why haven't you solved world hunger, poverty yet?
That's what I'm saying. You know, it's like all these people got complaints. And that's kind of where I was going is, you ever notice it's always the most miserable people that just complain the most and try to trash whatever you're doing?
If you're happy and content, why would you be shitting on someone else?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Of course, dude, obviously.
Yep. I just get to a point where I'm like, all right.
Cool. Have fun with that.
Yeah, I don't care.
Go on and be miserable.
I have 20 other things to focus on.
Why do you think I live on a ranch in Dripping Springs with my family? I don't deal with this bullshit.
Oh, it's the best.
Let people fucking be miserable. You go over there and be miserable. Have fun with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's at a point where you just can't even try anymore. Like some people just, I think it gives them like some sort of meaning in life to just attack things.
Of course.
And it's sad.
Because the alternate is they've got to look at their own life and see how miserable it is. And then the next step is to really ask themselves the question, why? And the answer is always, it's my fault.
Yep.
It's if your life is great, probably your fault. If your life is miserable, it's definitely your fault.
Yeah. People, you know, and people are just so scared to take that jump. I was at a bar yesterday talking, and to the girls working there, and they're all talking about what they want to do. Like, oh, this is part-time, and I'm trying to break into this. I'm like, well, why don't you? Like, what's holding you back? And it's always a million excuses on why they can't.
Face
and I'm like, just give me one reason why you could make this work. Like, why you could quit today and go do this. And it never is. But, you know, that's just some people, and it's never going to change.
That's most people.
Yeah.
They'll change when they're ready to change.
Yeah. And I'm always trying to be here to be a resource, but I'm not also going to chase that. And so, did you feel a lot of pressure with follow-up books, or was it just more of like...
You know what's funny? So I wrote 4 books in that series, in the Fratire series, and I made a huge mistake. Looking back, I can kind of see. So if you read all of my books, my first one has this sort of desperate energy to it that my fans loved. My second and third and fourth book were all way better in terms of writing ability. Like they're just, you can tell as I'm much better at my craft, right? But the later books lacked that that almost desperate energy. And there was a break of about, like 5 or 6 years between book 1 and book 2. And I had started writing part of book 2, and it was like I stopped because, you know, the movie, and I went down the Hollywood path, and I stopped writing for quite a while. And it was a huge mistake. Like, it really was. I forgot. I made the classic mistake of you get a little bit of success doing something, like whatever that thing is, and then people will like try to move to the next thing. Right? Instead of understanding where their success comes from, right? If I had kept writing consistently, then I think probably book 2 would have come out sooner, which would have been better. It would have probably still had that same sort of manic energy. I wouldn't have been able to carry that through for a decade, but I definitely could have had that for at least 2 books. But then also the big important thing is like, I forgot what it was that got me the initial success. I kind of pivoted off of that instead of staying with what I was doing. Like, we just talked about the Paul brothers. Yeah. You know, they're doing boxing and all this, but they also still have their YouTube channels, and they still do videos every day, and they haven't forgotten what got them there, and they haven't left their base of power. I made that mistake. Like it was not a wise decision on my part. I kind of tried to use one thing to ratchet to another, and I went to a whole different medium. Writing is its own medium, and it's not like you can't make leaps to other mediums, but I tried to do it very rapidly, and honestly, I didn't do it in a smart way, and then I left behind what I was doing that I was really good at, that's the reason everyone was coming to see me, you know what I'm saying? And so that was not a wise choice. Like, it's not that you can't I couldn't have added things. It's just that I probably shouldn't have left the thing that I was the best at for such a long period.
Did you think when they made the movie about it, that played a key role as far as,
I mean, the movie, so I'm the one who pushed that. Like, you know, I moved to LA. I wrote the screenplay with a buddy of mine. It was like the hottest screenplay in LA for like, 2 months or whatever. And we got it financed. We everything, like producers on the movie helped get it made. So like I was so focused on that and not focused on the thing that got me there. It's sort of like, it's like, I don't know. It's like, like the classic story, like the doctor who gets married, young, and then when he gets his own practice and gets rich, he dumps his wife and marries the hot. I kind of did that, but it's whereas like the real answer is no, just be with both of them.
Yeah, just make sure they never meet.
No, introduce them. It's fine. There's no problem with that. I was trying to go from one to the other instead of keeping the thing just I was best at.
Key roots.
Yeah. What role did you play like in the Hollywood stuff? Were you helping, I mean, obviously you wrote the whole. Yeah,
I wrote the screenplay with my writing partner, a guy named Niels Parker, who's great. Like he helped Matt Best write his book, Black Rifle, and a bunch of it. He's done a bunch of other stuff. So I wrote the screenplay, and honestly, the movie was not very good, and a lot of the reason is my fault. Even though like I wasn't the director, I wasn't the main producers, etc. I kind of picked all those people. Like we could have worked with almost anyone in Hollywood, like at that point, and I did a very poor job picking who we were going to work with in most cases. And so, I mean, that whole situation was unfun, dude. It was unfun. It was not. It was 3 years, 3 of the hardest years of my life, and man, it was so rough to watch it all fail. It ended up being. I mean, listen, think about how hilarious this is. Hold on, because I always got to recognize this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Avatar Nutrition. It is always a treat to show some love to our sponsor, Avatar Nutrition. Avatar is actually owned by my friend Mark, who is a lifting buddy of mine from the gym. What I didn't realize at the time is that his app has been used by close to 200,000 people, and they've used it to lose over 2.5 million pounds of pure body fat. What's really special about Avatar is that it's a complete service delivered through a super easy-to-use app. See, Avatar is the OG in the macros game and created a process that makes counting macros both fun and simple to stick to long-term. You've got unlimited support from their community and experts on staff, and they are in the business of giving their clients results that last. Try it free on the App Store or Google Play Store for 2 weeks, and if you love it as much as I do, it's just $9.99 a month after that, or $97.99 for the annual rate if you want even more of a discount. If you're a coach, trainer, or you own any kind of business and want to use Avatar to facilitate game-changing nutrition coverage for your people, Avatar is a program for groups too. Just contact them through their website to learn more at www.avatarnutrition.com.
So here I am. I had a movie made about my life before I turned 33 or 34. Like when I was 33 years old, I had a movie made about my life, and it didn't do 100 million in the box office, or even it's since done 10, but it didn't do 10 million. And I was totally crushed. It felt like it was a failure. Whereas like I could look at the same set of facts and be like, look, dude, I got a movie made about my life, a real Hollywood movie with actors and everything. And like, no, dude, like I was totally crushed. And of course I blamed everyone else for a long time. And don't get me wrong, the director was terrible. And there were a bunch. I picked those people. Probably the most important thing that ever happened to me professionally was that failure and then how I dealt with it. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Because I dealt with it horribly at the beginning. And then as I grew and evolved and realized, no, listen, like you can blame everyone else or you can actually eat the turd in front of you that you laid, right? Instead of trying to shovel it on it. And then once I did, I was able to like, not just move past the event, but like, cause financially it was fine for me. Like it was other people's money. It's not like,
like you're out of
not like I lost any money, but like, it was, emotionally, it was really hard for me. And it wasn't even that bad. I could have kept making movies. Like in Hollywood, once you make a movie, you can basically, how many people have you seen just keep failing upwards, right? It's actually easy to do in Hollywood.
Especially nowadays, movies are terrible. So,
but I was, once I turned and realized it was my fault and really owned every aspect of sort of my role, then I was like, oh, dude, now I can actually learn from it. Now I can move forward. Now I can actually grow. Like instead of blaming everyone else.
Yep. I mean, you couldn't have said it better. I'm always preaching to people, especially like young entrepreneurs trying to come up is, failure is often taken out of context. To me, it's just a really great lesson learner. Like the only way you can improve is to fail. Is to learn from your failures and kind of learn what works.
Well, if you're smart, you learn from other people's failures.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're not wrong.
You don't have to personally fail. Like I'm with you.
No, you're right.
There's a great saying that stupid people repeat their mistakes. Smart people learn from their mistakes, but the wisest people learn from the mistakes of others. I'm definitely not the wisest, right? I've had to make almost every mistake. Although finally now, like on a ranch, I'm like looking around, I'm like, oh, this dude did this. Okay, I'm not going to do that. I could do that.
Yep.
And I'm going to learn the same lesson he did, so I'm not going to do it.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I mean more in the sense of like, I think a lot of people's they'll let their ambition blind them from their current like position. There's a lot of people that will forget that what they have now is what they wished for a year ago, but they're so motivated to continue to grow that it holds them back. And so, but it is a great name.
What they're trying to do, man, is they're trying to fill a hole in their soul with shit that won't ever do it. It's a bottomless pit of a hole that it doesn't matter how much, whether it's women or pussy or penis or dollars or success or status or Instagram followers, whatever your currency is, it doesn't matter. That's never going to fill the hole in your soul. It's just not. I wish if it could, I would have filled it.
Yeah.
Like
you would.
I tried
this
that
person. Yeah.
Right. I don't mean this as a moralistic judgment. I just mean it's just not going to work.
No. And I mean, you're totally right. Because growing up in Boise, I was just having this conversation yesterday. It's so wild you bring it up. Where I was like, no confidence. I got messed with a lot growing up. Like I was the friend zone guy to every girl. And when I moved to Chico, it was like full 180. I got all this attention from women, beautiful women that I'd never seen or experienced before. Lawless town. I could just do whatever.
Were there any beautiful women in Boise?
Yeah, but I mean, California.
Yeah.
Well, it's like
we had 3.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that a lot of the girls in Boise, they're very like traditional too.
Right.
So I knew I was going to be traveling. I figured I had a pretty crazy life ahead of me, and then a lot of them too were just they just weren't into me. But California, it changed everything, and I thought that was to add to your point where getting with all these girls, partying all the time, having the label of football player, all this was going to be great. And then when it was over, and I'm back in Idaho, it was like, oh, that's not what's going to fill the gap. Like, it's
man, if alcohol and pussy could make me happy, I would have been I never would have stopped. I'd have been the happiest person on earth. It's sort of like
a means to an end,
right?
Really.
No. It's like fast food, right?
Yeah.
Like you can say whatever you want about fast food, it always tastes good, right? But it doesn't actually fill you up. It doesn't actually. It's not healthy. It's like you start paying the price after time. Same thing. Same thing with drinking, partying, and that. You can't say it's not fun or whatever for a short period of time or whatever, or for a decade, I guess it was for me. But like it has benefits. Let's not pretend it doesn't.
No, the
problem is the costs. Usually over time you start to realize, this is outweighing the benefit.
Yeah. Oh, especially when you start a business and you're like, okay, you wake up the next day and you're like, fuck, why'd I spend all that money? And you're like, that could have bought me, this supplies or this. And that's kind of where things are going. I'm going to be 30 in August. And like I still go out, I still have a lot of fun, but it's really starting to like lean towards like what fills that gap is accomplishments through work and all the goals and stuff I'm setting. And
for a while,
yeah,
that'll fill the gap for a while, and then you'll hit whatever your level is, where it's like, oh wow, I thought if I was going to get here, I'd be super happy, and I'm here, and I'm only like 3% happier.
Yep.
And you're going to realize, okay, well, it doesn't mean don't have accomplishments. It's just like, all right, well, what is it that's going to fill that? And then you start to realize that nothing external is. It's not an external thing, which doesn't mean you can't do things that are cool you like.
Yeah.
But understand, like, okay, just because I have a Ferrari doesn't mean I'm going to feel cool.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
Like,
I don't ever see me buying any crazy cars or anything like that. So, kind of switching gears to you started Scribe, right? So what exactly is Scribe?
we just help people write and publish books. Like when you write a book, everyone asks you, how'd you write a book? I want to write a book. Everyone wants to write a fucking book. And so I just started literally like a buddy of mine who was helping me with something else. This woman came, like, wanted to throw a bunch of money at me to write a book. I'm like, hey, do you want to do this? I'll split the money with you. He's like, yeah. And I kind of told him how to do it. I'm like, interviewer, here's structure or whatever. And it worked great. And then she started sending a bunch of people to us. And then all of a sudden we had a business. And then it got like, we were doing 2 million in sales. And I'm like, man, I don't know how to like scale a business. This is horrible. And so we hired Javon McCormick, who is running a company called Headspring. He was a client of ours, and he's a total badass at business. And now we're, well into the 8 figures, 100 something employees, 300 full time, 300 plus part time or freelance. And it's like a huge office over on the east side. Like, I don't do shit there anymore. Like, there's there's nothing for me to do. They're like, no. It's because it's like it's a full real business that has policies and procedures. I'm like, that's not where I operate. Like, I'm not good at that. Yeah. If you have an HR, you don't want me around. Right? Yeah. Like, if you have like, here's how we do things, that's cool. That there's a place for that. I'm usually better in the how do we think up something and how do we get it started and
problem solving.
Right.
Yeah. No, I one of the first things I did when I stopped working 9 to 5s out here, I moved here about 5 years ago. I was working at a nutrition store, and I would just wanted to do my own thing. And I had a friend of mine, Emily, that convinced me to, like, the best fit would to be a consultant. Go in, help companies turn around, like, offer some advice, things that have worked in the past, problem solve, and then get out. Like, I was not trying to stay and kind of shape a whole company. That's not what I do. And so when you were starting that, or a lot of just the ventures you've had now, was it tough in the beginning to, kind of drop that image from all the crazy stories in the books and like try to be taken more serious? Or was it,
I've never really worried about that, man. Like it's funny. It's like, I always get that question. I'm always like, what people think about me is their own issue, not mine. It can impact me, right? But like, for every person who's like, I don't want to work with him, I've heard bad things. Okay, cool. There's, another one or more who's like, oh, I read his books, when I was in college, I love that guy, or, oh, whatever. Like, so like someone's opinion about me is not my issue. And it doesn't have anything to do with me.
Yeah.
That's the weirdest. Like, once you'll start to see it, man. As you start to get more and more well known, you'll meet people who like who have whole ideas and conceptions about you that have nothing to do with you.
Yep.
It's about them and their projection of you. Right?
Their projection
what
of their own
mean
insecurity
to them, but nothing at all about you.
Yep.
Dude, I can't tell you how many people I've met in my life who had, because I'm a writer and I have like a lot of stuff out there. They'll have deep, intricate, emotional connections and relationships to me, except it's unilateral. It's one way. I don't know who they are. Right? I don't know their name. And then, talking about this and that. Do you remember when I'm like, yeah, dude, I was there. You weren't there. Yes, I remember. That was my life. Right? And so I can't tell you, like, you'll see any sort of fame or notoriety on any level this starts to happen. And then so what you realize, because it tripped me out at first, I was like, how can you have this opinion about me? That's not about, that has nothing to do with, it didn't make any sense. I would think, well, they have to know me. And then I'm like, one of my friends eventually was like, dude, how long are you going to keep being naive about this? And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. And so then I started to realize, okay, people have, someone's opinion about me is about them. and their relationship to what they see about me has almost nothing, if not nothing. I'm not talking about friends or family or like coworkers, people who know me. I'm talking about outside, you know? So I don't, every second I spend worrying about that is a second I've stolen from my family or myself. So why would I worry about that?
Is that just kind of how you deal with it now? You just, all right, block it out. Like,
well, it's not blocking out. It's like, it's not a thing that I consider. It's sort of like if I'm asking you, hey man, like, how do you deal with the price of wheat in Bangladesh? You're like, what the hell are you talking about? Same thing.
Yeah, you're right. And I mainly asked that because like I have noticed that, like, and I was just talking to Marlon about this prior to you coming here. Was like I'm learning things about me that I didn't know was happening. Like, like there's people that don't like me that are just spreading it, and it's like. You know, I'll talk to a lot of like my peers and stuff, and they'll just be like, yeah, just don't worry about it. Just block it out and stuff. And I'm like, it's so hard because you feel like they're sabotaging your work and like where you're heading towards. And so that's why I ask how you deal with it. Cause
first you realize it's not about you, right? Then the next thing, honestly, if you're triggered by it, right? Is so if someone says, oh man, I heard he's really overweight or something, like whatever, right?
He's this or that,
right? Okay, like if someone said you were weak, you'd probably laugh at them, right? Like, what are you talking about? It wouldn't trigger you because you're like, oh no, like I'm a strong dude. But if they said something that maybe I heard his company's really struggling, his financials are bad. If that was like if you were anxious about that, if you had an insecurity about it, and then you're like, fuck them, this is bullshit. I've got all this money in the account. Look at my fucking bank statement. Then it's like, oh, okay. So what I use those people to help me with is they actually show me where I'm not as confident, not as secure, not as together as I think I am. It doesn't mean they're right about my bank statement. Like I know what the numbers are. It means that I'm insecure and worried about that, right? Like if I'm triggered by what someone I don't know is saying about me, that's an indicator. It's a teacher for me to look at and be like, oh, why am I so upset about this? Yeah. Even though it's not true. Like, what am I pissed about? You know?
Yeah.
No, that makes sense?
Yeah, you're totally right. Yeah, it's been new. So when I started this, I'd purposely kept my face off it. I wanted it to be a brand. So no one knew who ran it for years. And then when I came out the show, I was like, there's no way I'm going to let someone else run it. And I've just progressively, as the show just continues to get more and more popular and we get all these really cool guests, I've just noticed like also it's exciting, but then there's that other side of like constantly getting shit on. And I'm like, I don't know what else to do about it. So,
I mean, I'm telling you, dude, haters are actually also fans is the thing you got to understand, right? Like when you're in media, the real currency is not money, it's attention. Haters are paying attention. You know, which doesn't, I'm not necessarily saying, like go piss them off. You can take a controversy perspective. That works for some people, doesn't work for others. But like those people are helping you, dude. Yeah. And they don't know it. They don't think they are, but they are.
It's free publicity.
Seriously. And so like, especially if you're doing the right thing, if you're being solid, you're treating people right, you're showing up in the right way, then I wouldn't worry about it at all. Now, like, listen, if you're like, burning down people's houses in the background and no one knows, like, I'm going to keep this secret. All right, well, then maybe you got shit to worry about. People are like, I heard he's a pyromaniac. Right? Maybe it's true. But, like,
there's no laws in Chico. You just don't talk about it.
And in my opinion, if you're like building an empire and building a team and building a business, and those are things that keep all your ducks in a row anyway, because the people that see you for what you need to be are the ones that are going to last in your empire. So it's not really a true worry.
You're totally right. I mean, yeah, it's an exciting and interesting change, and it's just getting more fun. And so, kind of on the topic of what we have and all this, was there ever a point where you started kind of dropping all the partying and tearing it up and kind of focusing more on the mental health as well as physical health?
Yeah. So the movie came out in 2009. I was pretty like. Again, I keep calling it the failure, but from my perspective, the failure of the movie was pretty crippling for a little while. I moved to Austin as soon as I was in LA, I hated LA. Yeah. Got to Austin. That's when I came to Austin because I was literally looking for the opposite place in America of LA, but still warm for the winter. And so I came here, and that was sort of when it was like, okay, like I kind of took stock of my life.
Today's episode is brought to you by CBD Online Xpress. CBD Online Xpress is a fresh, up-and-coming CBD company that strives to offer the highest quality products at an affordable price to help you in your everyday life. They offer a variety of products such as tinctures, edibles, flour, and even their new recreational line, Oxed Up. They also have plans to introduce water and an energy drink later this year. Go to cbdonlineexpress.com and get your products today.
I was rich, famous, had like more women than I could sleep with, more like all the things that in my mind at the time that I thought I needed to have to be happy, I had in ridiculous, preposterous abundance, right? Yeah. And so like I was like, all right, but I'm still like I'm way happier than when I was poor and broke and girls didn't like me, or at least not as many. Yeah. But like, or I had to work for girls, whereas now they just show up. But like I'm only like 10% like better. I should feel like 100 times better. But like and so I was like, all right, well, let me fix everything. And then I got like, that's when I started CrossFit, and I got in amazing shape, and I like everything in my life, everything was dialed, right? Like I had a 6-pack then, like it was nuts. Like I mean, I look at pictures of myself now, I'm like, man, I actually look great then. Like what's wrong with me now? And so like, but then I was like, okay, I was like 3% happier, and I'm like, fuck, man. And that was when I really realized I guess I was about 34, maybe 35, 34, when I realized, okay, well, if everything external in my life is awesome and I'm still not happy, maybe the problem is me. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's nothing external that can fix this. And I tried everything. And that's when I really got serious about therapy and started therapy. And then that was, this was about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And that's when we really started on that path, right? And then that's been the thing that's really, the whole therapeutic healing path has been the thing that's like been by far the best thing I've ever done.
So therapy is in like just talking to someone, just having that.
I started with talk therapy, right? And did that for 4 years and went pretty serious with a psychoanalyst in town. Mm-hmm. And then after 4 years, it's like, most good talk therapy is very intellectual, right? You're talking about your emotions, which is great, because if you don't understand anything about emotions, which I really didn't, then understanding them is important. But it like gave me a map of my emotions, but what you got to do is feel them, right? And I wasn't very good at that. I was, in fact, quite bad at it. And so the thing that really unlocked me, I tried meditation and yoga and all that nonsense, of course, and like none of that really worked for me. But then about 4 years ago, I found psychedelic medicine.
I was just gonna say, I was like,
found Mdma Therapy.
It's a huge thing right now that a lot of people aren't talking enough about, is the benefits of it.
It's the most important thing I've ever done in my life. Like, and it's funny, people are like, but you have a wife and kids. It's more important than them. I'm like, I'd be divorced and I'd be a really shitty father if I had not, like, all of therapy is super important. Like, it's not like just that, but the real catalyst for me to make the most movement emotionally, to connect to myself, to connect to happiness, to everything, was psychedelic medicine, right? And again, man, I can't emphasize this enough. It's not like, oh yeah, I just did some drugs and everything was great. No.
That's what everyone's.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great? No. If that worked, then all the ravers from the 90s would be the happiest people on earth. Not how it works. All psychedelic medicine does, and I'm talking about like MDMA, psilocybin, LSD.
Yep.
Like the basic ones, you can ayahuasca, whatever. All it does is opens a space for you to deal. It actually makes your life harder at the beginning, because all the emotions you're pushing away, all the problems you don't want to deal with, all the shit in your life you don't want to face, what psychedelics do is it brings it to the surface, right? And it helps you face it, but you still have to decide to face it. And you still have to decide to feel all your shame and all your guilt and all your grief and all your sadness and all your embarrassment and your joy and happiness and all this other stuff and love. And like, that's hard. It was really hard for me. But like now I'm starting to come out the other end, and it's like, I mean, dude, I have this amazing, incredible, blessed life. And, what I thought sex and fame and money would get me, feeling my emotions actually got me.
Yeah.
Right. Which Like, dude, if you tried to convince me when I was 30 at your age, if you tried to convince me of this, I would have laughed at you, mocked you, and possibly fought you. Right?
Don't talk to me. Yeah.
Shut up, you nerd. Emotions, you're such a loser. And like, that's just the level of consciousness I was at the time, you know? It just, I didn't get it. I had to suffer a lot more before I was willing to turn and face my shit. You know?
Well, the ego gets in the way.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
But that thing moves right out of the way when you're having those experiences. It makes you very interested.
It depends on your ego. It took me a lot of like the first time I had real, I'm not even sure if it was true ego death, but I had a deep ego collapse or whatever. I had to do 8.5 grams of mushrooms, dude.
Really?
Dude, I had a pretty experienced mushroom shaman start me at 3.5, right? And I talked to him. We kind of, you know, he knew me. He's like, 3.5 might work. We'll see. He's like, but you know, like, and we talked about, I'm like, yeah, give me as much as you want. Then did another gram kicker at an hour because he wanted to see me at 2 hours with about 4.5 grams. And I was still fighting it, not consciously, just my body and ego and everything, man. It was so entrenched. And then he dumped another 4 grams on me, and it was like, dude. And I was like, whoop! I was gone, man. It was a real hard reset. Yeah, and it was what I needed. It was amazing. But yeah, that was intense. That was no joke.
1 or 2 of those a lifetime and be okay. Yeah,
truly. Yeah.
It's so as far as since doing that, like, did you ever grow up with any preconceived notion of what like love was, or is that something that you really you opened yourself up to post, you know?
So the first time I did Mdma Therapy, it was in New York with a guide who works in New York. And I'll never forget it, man. Like, you know, I went to her office, and you know, like she's a therapist, and like, obviously this isn't legal, so like, you know, it's all whatever. And
what is anymore?
I mean, I don't care.
Yeah,
but like, she didn't have a sign on the doors. I kind of had to find her through friends and all that sort of stuff. Right? Exactly. Who wants to do drugs in my office? Come over. And so, you know, like, I was nervous and all this other stuff. And my wife was with me for, you know, moral support. And so I took it, and it took about an hour and a half because I was kind of fighting it. Like, the good thing about MDMA is so soft and gentle, but the bad thing is it's soft and gentle. It's easy to fight, right? And so eventually, I literally I took a quick nap, fell asleep about an hour, half an hour into it, which is like, I don't know who sleeps on MDMA. I did. And so it was the first time I'd ever taken it. Like, I'd never done any drugs. And so then I woke up, and I didn't quite feel it yet. So I took like the booster. I had 125 at first, and then 75. And then when it hit me, like, it kind of snuck up on me, right? I'm sitting there, whatever. You know, I got my eye shade on. I'm listening to music or whatever. And then all of a sudden, man, it's like out of nowhere, I felt the deepest, most profound love I had ever felt in my life. And it wasn't like just a little bit better or deeper. It was like the difference between chicken salad and chicken shit. Like, it was so different that it was just like, I realized at that moment that I had never felt love before. Like, that truly, like, I had felt, you know, some version of it that I thought was love. It was the deepest I could go. And I remember my wife was there, and I was crying. I'm like, I love you. And she's like, I love you too. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. And she's like, I understand. I don't think you understood.
Well, like, maybe she didn't understand. Like, you hadn't, or I've had an experience like this. And tell me if it, you know, but like, you finally understand everything they've done for you. It happens almost like in a reel in your head.
No, because that's too intellectual for me. It wasn't that intellectual. I know what you're saying. It was more like I had never been in touch with that feeling inside.
That actual emotion.
Right, the depth of that love. Yeah. Okay. And so I got in touch with that, and I realized, yeah, of course, I loved her that much, but I had never felt that in me. Like, it had not been accessible to me. And the MDMA opened up the space, and then like just the overwhelming love for her, for my kids, for creation, for the universe, for life. Yeah. I mean, it was almost overwhelming. It was overwhelming, actually. Like, I was crying, not in a bad way. It was just like, oh my God. I never felt anything like that. And then after that, it was like all the shit came. It was like, okay, you get the good part for a little bit. Now here comes every emotion that you've run from your whole life. And it's
just a shit show.
Yeah. Dude, and I mean, man, for the like, that's really what the last about 4 years ago I started. Last 3.5 years or so have been is me facing all the things, the emotions, whatever, man. And dude, man, I had a session where I combined LSD and MDMA, which is a great combination for me. I felt so much grief. I thought I was going to die. Yeah. I thought I was feeling the grief of the world. I mean, I felt it was like literally I thought I was dying. It was so overwhelming. It was so I drowning in grief. It was just hours. Like LSD it takes forever. It's like 12 hours of heaving, racking, full body sobs and all this shit and crying. And these horrible, weird memories come up of like, me in my crib alone and crying, my mom not showing up. That's a crazy. A lot of people take this stuff and they realize, oh, all this stuff happened to me that I pushed away or forgot. Like that happens all the time. I knew everything. Yeah. Like at least to this point, nothing new has come up for me. Like I knew my parents didn't really care about me that much, didn't want me, didn't love me. I knew that intellectually though, right? And they weren't horrible people. They were kind of broken, messed up, had all their own issues. They probably loved me the best they could, but they weren't connected to themselves at all. So like you can't give someone what you don't have, right? So even if they did the best they can, they at least as parents, they did a pretty poor job. And so like I knew that. Yeah. I knew all that. And I knew, of course, that's impact, but like I knew it intellectually. Yeah. I hadn't felt any of it. But like the grief of childhood that is overwhelming as a child and so overwhelming. And this is what this is how body deals with trauma, as it kind of pushes it away. Yeah. There's a great, if anyone doesn't understand that, there's a great book called The Body Keeps the Score, which describes all this. It's fantastic. And it kind of stores it away because it's like, you feel like you're going to die. And then it comes up and like, I'm like, oh, now I remember thinking, now I understand why my body stores away trauma, because I actually think I'm going to die now, and I'm like 44, and I know I'm not going to, right? But I feel like I am. If I was feeling this at 3, of course that's overwhelming. Yeah,
just pushes it down.
Like I knew this was coming, and I know I'm not going to die, and it still feel like I'm going to die. You know?
I wonder if it's tied to like I've gotten a lot better at like understanding and trying to get more in tune with like emotions and being able to put it into words whenever speaking to anyone. But, I have a very analytical mindset. So like the week before COVID happened, today's episode is brought to you by Hotworx. I want to let you guys know about an incredible new craze going on in the Austin fitness community. It's called Hotworx. Hotworx is a virtually instructed exercise program created for users to experience the many benefits of infrared heat absorption while completing a 30-minute isometric workout or a 15-minute high-intensity interval training session. As the infrared heat penetrates your body, causing you to sweat, the isometric postures further accelerate detoxification by physically removing the toxins from your organs through muscle contraction. Hotworx is virtually instructed, has 24/7 access, and also offers easy-to-use app-based scheduling so you never have to miss a class again. Hotworx has 2 locations to serve, located at the intersection of Anderson Mill Road and FM 620 in the HEB Plus Shopping Center, and also another location in San Marcos. So stop in, tell them Austin Fitness Community sent you, and get a special free session on us, and check out Hotworx today.
Right.
My closest friend out here had killed himself.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know how to do that. And so I usually deal with trauma or anything sad. I mask it in humor.
Right.
And
a lot of people do.
Yeah. And I think that, that's kind of how people deal with grief and trauma.
That is one way.
And, there's definitely some
there's
dark
other ways.
paths that people go. But I have noticed that trend. I've always been super interested in psychology and sociology. And I have noticed that a lot of those are tied to analytical thinkers, and authors are some of the most analytical people I've met. So I wonder if that has any type of connection.
In my experience, man, being analytical is a way. There's nothing wrong with reason and logic and rationality. That's great. Like if you're trying to build a bridge, I don't want your feelings about what's going to keep the bridge up, right? I want like real empirical data. I want all logic, right? Yeah. But like when you're talking about emotions and feeling, reason and analytical mindset doesn't work there. It doesn't help, right? And our bodies and our brains can contain both. And I think a lot of the problem is people I know I get so stuck in analytical, logical reasoning, which is cool when you use it in its place. It's like it's a hammer, right? And if you use a hammer to drive in screws, you're just gonna fuck everything up, right? But as long as you keep the hammer to nails, you're good, right? Use the screwdriver for screws. And so like dude, like analytical mindset is a great way to avoid emotions, right? Like if you have some really hard emotions you don't want to face, I get it. That's what I did for decades, right? And I get it. Now that I spent the last 4 years really feeling this, man, I know why I avoided. It was horrible. This is not fun. It is not fun to spend 12 hours nearly vomiting from oppressive grief. But dude, 3 weeks later, I was like, holy fuck, I had no idea I could feel like this. Like it was amazing. I had let all of this go. It was like I had lost, it's like doing one of the like a CrossFit. You do the Murph workout and you wear that horrible weighted vest for like an hour while you run, and then you take it off. You're like, I feel amazing. That's exactly what I felt like with grief, like letting go of the grief.
Weight off your
I felt like I had lost 1,000 pounds, man. It was so good.
Is it something you have to continue to manage, or is it something that like you went through it and you're good, or is that something you continue to go back to?
It's a little bit of both, right? Okay. So there's definitely things that like experiences or emotions I've had, it's like, oh, like I can feel this and now it's gone. And then there are others that are like behavior patterns, like I still have to my kids, I get one of the things I have to work on the most with my kids is I can get quick to anger, quick to snap at them, and I've gotten way better at that. But even still, like for me, because my family wasn't very good. I came from a family of yellers, right? Not all of them, but enough of them were yellers and angry, and then I ended up kind of adopting some of that, right? And then now dumping some of it on my kids, which is fucked up. I'm way better than what I got, but that's like, people are like, well, I'm a better mom than my mom was. That's cool. You're still a shitty mom, right? Well, the same thing.
The bar wasn't set that high. Yeah.
Right. Same thing's true with me in that realm. Like way better than I got, but still not good enough, right? And so that's a thing that I've had to really continually work on. And it's not just feeling the underlying anger and the emotions, right? It's also resetting those behavioral patterns, right? Because so in men, anger is usually, not always, but like this is true for me. Anger is used to either chase away shame or to hide grief. Right. And I had a ton of grief and quite a bit of shame. And so like I had all kinds of anger. And so like whenever something happens with my kids and I start getting angry, then I've got what I do now is I really work on, first off, catching it before I snap at them. Right. Which is really important. But then if I don't catch it and I snap at them, then it's like, okay, hold on. I just dumped some shit on them that's not theirs. Now what? Right. And so then how do I deal with that? Right. And it's not just saying sorry. It's like, then we got to walk through, hey, daddy made a mistake. I'm not supposed to do that, but we all make mistakes and daddy's made one. I'm sorry, and then helping them process because they just got some shit dumped on them. Right. That's not theirs. Right. And so, so some things I got to work on, like long-term behavioral patterns that have been part of sort of who I am for a long time. Whereas like, some emotions, some things I can let go of and they just go. It kind of depends, you know?
No, you're absolutely right. I was very fortunate to grow up with some awesome parents that to this day continue to help and support. They definitely have their own ways of showing it. We're not a very verbal family. We're actions.
You grunt?
Like, what's up? Like you try to say I love you to my dad, he'll be like, I need you to leave.
Yeah, right.
Do
you need your oil change?
Yeah. Or what? It's like what'd you do? Like, and so, but they continue to show like their support through actions. And growing up, we always would sit down and have conversations like that. And I think communication is important. So, what's up?
I was gonna say I'm reading a book right now called No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah.
And he talks about, he's a therapist that helps people with like a quote unquote like nice guy syndrome, right? And he was talking about that like nobody is owed anything except a child, because they weren't like they didn't ask to be brought into the world, right? And so a lot of times like the mannerisms we end up with when we're 30 and 40, it happened because like we were just a kid that had a need that didn't get met in a timely manner.
And we developed a strategy to try and get it. Yeah, of course.
To get that need. Yeah. So that's one of those things where it's like you grow up with habits and they're almost
behavioral
hardwired in your head. Yeah.
They're not, you can change them. I mean, my habits, so much of stuff that was deep in me is fundamentally changed now. Like so much, not all of it, right? It's still a process, but it's, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's absolutely possible to change just about any behavior pattern.
Yeah.
It's just
a simple equation.
It's consistency as well. You know, I got a lot of people out here that, friends that are like, they don't want to be seen as who they're known for. And I'm like, well, it doesn't change overnight. Like there has to be a consistent pattern of the change that you're, you know, and the perception you're trying to gain from people. And so, you know, given all the crazy stories and the stuff in the books, how does your wife feel, or how did she handle that too? Just, you know, dealing with that.
Well, for her to handle. Yeah. It's not her. She wasn't in the books. Like I met her long after they were published, you know, and done. And so like, nothing for it's my stuff, not hers.
Yeah, I asked because I wasn't, you know, I'm not too sure on how, like, you know, meeting women in the past, how they would deal with some of those wild stories, or if that, like, if you ever had to come to deal with that kind of shit.
Once my stuff became well known, that basically every woman I interacted with knew who I was, at least to some degree. Okay. Right? Like, not every woman in America. I wasn't like, I could go to the grocery store fine. I'm not like Eminem, right?
Yeah.
But like, but I had so many women coming to me because of who I was that like I just dealt with those women. Like I didn't need to go pick up girls. And what invariably would happen though, which was the most fun, is like some girl would be like, email me, you know, I want to hook up with you and meet you. And like, okay, cool. Then I'm, you know, be here, come here. And she'd bring like 8 friends of hers. And so like 2 of them would like be huge fans. And then like 4 would have maybe read some of the books, thought they were funny, but whatever. And then like 2 would only vaguely, they wouldn't really know who I was. They would just know her friends were into me. And so what invariably happened is the girls who didn't know who I was, because I'm actually funny, at least at the time, you know, when I was trying to get laid, I was actually funny in person and charming and whatever. The girls who didn't know who I was usually ended up liking me the most because they had no expectation coming in, right? No. Like the girls who were fans, like they always had, I never knew what their expectations were. They could be anywhere from like, oh, I hope he treats me like shit, to, no, seriously, there are tons of girls who came because they thought I would treat them terrible. And I'm like, okay, like that took me years to understand was the thing. But like I never knew what they, usually the people who were fans had such weird expectations that had nothing to do with me, that the real me was not what they wanted. All the time that happened.
The character.
Right, exactly. Or what they imagined the character to be, right? And so their friends would be like, oh, this guy's smart and funny, and all my friends think he's cool, right? So like they already know I'm high status, even if they couldn't read at all, right? It didn't matter. I was like, their friends wanted me, so like they like, oh, okay. And those were always the girls I did the best, or I liked the most and connected the most with, and usually ended up hooking up with, or even dating in some cases, right? But no, dude, like that was when I was single.
Yeah.
When I met my wife, I was like very ready for like a serious relationship. I had a couple in a row that didn't work out, or they weren't the right girls, or I didn't want to marry. And then met her, and then it was like, oh yeah, it's so funny. She read a few of my stories. She's like, I didn't like them. And I'm like, you don't think they're funny? She's like, yeah, they're funny, but she's like, you know, I know you, and I know how you are. I'm like, she's like, they just felt so sad to me. She's like, I just seemed like that. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I actually get what she means. Yeah. Like if you, from where I am now, I hadn't read my stuff for years. And then a few months ago, I had to read a story, and I'm like, oh, that dude's so fucked up. As I read it, I'm like, and like, but like, it was like, oh, shoot, dude, you have no idea what's coming, right? Yeah. Like, it was like, and I'm like, okay, I get that perspective. But she doesn't take it like, you know, some people are like, oh, but you know, you're known for whatever, hold it over, right? And I'm like, no. She's the type who's like, no, my life is mine, his life is his. We're together, but she's like, it doesn't mean anything for me that he did this stuff before we met. Like that's who he was then.
His past, that's good. Yeah, I you know, I've met people, a lot of people that like have this crazy history, just partying and getting with girls and doing all that, and it's they seem to struggle settling down. And I think that
it was a struggle.
Yeah.
No, so here's the thing though. I did all my struggle was before I was in the relationship with her. So a lot of people had this idea, oh yeah, she's the girl that tamed the bad boy, right? No, that's not how it works. Like if the relationship is that, then they don't work. Like I know dudes like I know guys who are way more famous, like real, like famous, who like got married and like they kind of, not that they didn't want to get married, but they're like, oh, I guess I'll get married because I like her a lot, but they weren't ready to get married.
Settling,
that shit works in 0% of the time. No. Zero. The girl who tames the bad boy ends up getting divorced. Yeah. Pretty much always, right? I don't know of any exceptions. Whereas what I did was different. I knew I wanted a family and a relationship and a serious one with a great wife. And so I was talking to my therapist about this, 2 years into our, and so like I did 6 months, a year of work around that before I ever met her. That got me to the point where like I could meet a girl like that and that she would want to actually be with me, right? And I would be in the place to be able to have that relationship, right? And it was so funny. My therapist was so good. Good, because I remember telling, like, I'm like, I'm trying to meet girls and like, like nothing's working out. And she's like, Tucker, you're meeting, all the girls you're meeting are girls who are emailing you to hook up. And I'm like, oh, fuck. She's like, you really think you're going to marry one of those? And I'm like, ugh. Right. I don't like it when you're right. Yep. And then it was, no, but the best part was like, she's like, okay, well, tell me like what you're looking for in a woman. And like, I started, remember the lists that girls would make in middle school? Oh, my husband's going to like, and it would be like 100 things long, right? And like, I basically made a list like that. And she goes, does this woman exist? And I was like, oh, yeah, of course. I kind of narrowed down the guy. And then she goes, okay, this woman's a badass, right? I'm like, she's a total badass. She is a smoke show and she's smart and she's this and she's that. And she looks at me and she goes, why does she want to be with you? And I was like, bitch, I'm paying you money. And she's like, no, I don't mean that as an insult. But that woman can pick just about any guy she wants. Why you and not a guy just like you who doesn't have any of your problems? And I was like, fucking, I will knock your ass out. I was mad, but I was like, fuck, she's right. She's 100% right. The girl I want right now doesn't want me. And I'm like, and it wasn't a whole lot of things I had to change, but there were a couple very important, substantial things I had to get, because like at that point I was still sleeping with 3 girls at a time or whatever. And I'm like, right, why would the girl, like, why would she's not going to step into that midstream. Like, of course not. And so I had to really kind of decide, okay, what do I want? How serious am I? And then how do I orient my life so that I start to attract that person into it, and then I'm ready to receive her. That was not easy, dude. That took time.
Yeah, it's been a tough pill to swallow. I do believe in the law of attraction, and I get, whenever I start talking to a girl and they want to like make it more serious, I always just tell them like, no, like I'm not the person I want to be yet. So like I don't want to like try to. It might just be a personal preference of mine, but it's like I'm not trying to like manage 2 things. Like I'm not in the position I want to be in yet. Like I'm not the person yet, but like I'm close. But it's, I couldn't agree more with what you were saying as far as there's still a lot of work to be done before making that settle. Today's episode is brought to you by Line 1 Nutrition. Since their inception 13 years ago, Line 1 Nutrition has steadily grown into one of the most trusted supplement companies in the world, consistently formulating groundbreaking muscle building supplements enjoyed throughout the USA and at military bases around the world. Excellent customer service is a staple of Line 1 Nutrition and is a big reason they've maintained a dedicated customer base with clients who reorder time and again. Line 1 Nutrition's products aren't the garden variety proteins and pre-workouts found on the shelf. They've spent years developing a line custom engineered to exceed normal standards and meet every need, from mind-blowing pre-workouts to incredible joint support with CBD and even green energy Malaysian kratom, which provides fantastic stress-reducing, anti-inflammatory properties that benefit athletes of any kind. But where Line 1 has really made their mark is with their lean muscle-building supplements. No other company can match Line 1's unique, potent, proven effective muscle builders. The bottom line is, if you're serious about taking your physique to the next level, Visit www.line1nutrition.com today and use code AFC15 to save 15% off your entire order. So
what you're telling the girl is you aren't good enough to marry me.
Yeah.
You're just telling her from your side.
Yeah, I'm like, how do
when I really have my shit together, I'll have women way better than you. That's what you're saying. That's what you're saying. Which, bless your heart, but that is exactly what you're saying.
I mean, when you put it that way. So I guess were you ever, kind of on the topic of fitness too, were you ever out of shape, and how did being in shape versus like out of shape impact your ability, with women or to attract them?
Relative to me, I've been out of shape, but I've never been like, some disgusting fatty like most people nowadays. But no. Like the worst I ever got was, I think, 03 or 04. I think I hit 210 pounds. I'm probably like 180 right now. I think it was 179 this morning. And so like, and I'm not in fantastic. Yeah, I'm probably whatever. I'm in like,
just healthy.
Yeah, I'm good shape. Yeah. Can do everything I want physically pretty easily. I do Jiu Jitsu 3 times a week. I do whatever.
Where at?
At Gracie Umata, like where Tim Kennedy rolls.
Like at Tim's school?
Well, no, Tim just opened a branch in Cedar Park, but like he used to roll with Paulo and down on.
They're doing a thing tomorrow.
Yeah,
actually. Yep.
Yeah, right. So it's the same lineage, same everything.
Yeah.
No, I've rolled with Tim hundreds of times.
Oh yeah.
Like he's the worst to roll with. I really hate with him. The only good thing about it is I know. Okay, so he's literally one of the best hand-to-hand fighters in the world. Like there's just no doubt about that, right? So like I know how I'm going to do against someone who is way stronger, way more skilled, way more motivated than me. Because there's no one I could ever fight hand to hand who's going to be harder. Maybe as there's a handful who are as hard. Like whatever. There's people as good as him.
Yeah,
and they're basically all in the UFC.
This is true. Yeah.
And so I know, okay, like if I have to fight John Jones, I basically know how it's going to go. I'm going to get my ass kicked, right? I know how. But like, it's like, all right, I can handle. Like, it's not.
Well, depends which John Jones you're getting.
Well, it's true.
Did he just do a bunch of blow?
If he did a bunch of blow, it'll probably be worse, actually.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. But yeah, no, I, kind of back on that, you're saying, so you roll in jiu-jitsu, you were doing CrossFit.
Yeah.
You not do any of those anymore?
No, man, I'm 46 now, and I live on a ranch, right? So like, I have kettlebells. Have you ever used a Bulgarian bag? Do you know what that is?
Growing up wrestling, we used to.
Oh, right, of course, dude.
Flip them, they're brutal.
Those things are. You look at it, you're like, this is what kind of pussy ass shit is this? Oh, dude,
those are
it is a violent pussy ass shit. Those things will fuck your shit up, dude. So I have an Airdyne Bulgarian bag, kettlebells, and like that's pretty much all I do now. And that's more than enough. Plus ranch work, like actual ranch work. I have cows, sheep, a flock of sheep. Dogs, bees, we have chickens, like fences to mend. Like I have actual physical, you look like you grew up doing farm labor, like actual farm labor. My first job was
at a horse racetrack cleaning stalls.
I cleaned stalls in high school too. I shoveled actual horse shit.
It was not fun, but horses are cool. But
what kind of horses were you around that were cool?
They're just quarter horses.
Oh yeah,
like Appaloosas.
Dude, I shoveled horse shit on a thoroughbred farm. Those guys are assholes.
Yeah,
they
kick
bite you and kick you. They're mean. They're
horse bites are the worst.
Oh, dude, horrible.
Yeah, I actually, dude, it's so funny. My old boss, him and his wife, like sweetest people ever, but they wanted to go to 6th Street one time,
right?
And we go down there, and his wife is like a magnet for chaos. Like everything bad happens to her. She fell like 5 times, but she wanted to pet one of the police horses, and it bit her hand like bad, and she started crying. I had to go home. So I just, dude, horse bites, they suck, and horses don't care. They're like,
no, they don't give a fuck, right?
And so, did you always see yourself having a ranch?
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I knew we'd live on land and raise our kids there, and I'm not living in. Man, we knew we would go, and then COVID hit, and we're like, what the hell have we been waiting for? Let's go.
Yeah, how was that for you? The whole when everything.
Yeah, so it's fun. Like, so for the first 3 weeks or whatever, 2 weeks, I was just same as everyone. Oh, it's terrible. We're all gonna die. But then, I was like, hold on a minute. And I kind of woke up pretty quickly that something's off here. And then by mid-April, like, okay, this is bullshit. By May, I was back doing Jiu Jitsu.
Yeah,
like we didn't officially open for a while, but like Paulo's Brazilian, he didn't give a fuck.
Well, so, a lot of gyms were doing that. They were just let people in. So.
Yeah, exactly. So we were back rolling by May, but you know what the funny thing with COVID? Everyone says they love their family. I love my family. What I realized during COVID is I really like my family. I was around them all the time. Yeah. Total difference. And we went walks every day, because I'm traveling, and I'm like, what the fuck was I traveling for? Like, I know there's a reason, but this is bullshit. This is way better. And so that's part of we're like, let's go get on land and let's stop all this other bullshit and literally just be with ourselves and our kids and whatever. And we literally just, you can look at my Instagram. We started a school that opens in the fall. We bought some land near us. I saw that.
Yeah, you are creating a whole community.
Oh, dude, it's like the school's almost full, man. Yeah. Like, for next year, it's a Waldorf. It's amazing people working there. Like incredible. Like,
what's the method behind the school? Because
Waldorf.
So what is Waldorf? Okay. And I asked because Tim started his school, and it's off the.
It's an Acton.
Yeah, it's a method.
It's Acton is the method.
That's what
Acton.
It's called.
Yeah. Okay, it's an Acton. So, if we lived up north, I would have gone to Tim's school. Like, I was like super. I'm like, obviously, I'm a friend of Tim's. So, like, but we live like an hour and a half away from him or something. So it's like, all right, dude, I want you to succeed, but we got to have our own shit. And so Waldorf is essentially, imagine if you had like imagine you were trying to raise a Renaissance like a kid, but you also teach them like all like nature stuff and woodcraft. Like a Waldorf is that you build, if you do it right, it has a biodynamic farm on the school, right? And so like, which is like biodynamic is even more extreme than organic, right? And you kind of have like classrooms in the woods basically, and the kids learn music and movement and dance and like skill carpentry and blacksmithing and all this cool stuff.
Trades they should learn,
but then also like you read Greek poetry, and you true Renaissance education, but also very grounded in nature and very, very woo-woo, but woo-woo in a way that like makes sense, like not stupid stuff. Yeah. And it's been around for like 120 years, started in Germany a long time ago. And like it's in my opinion, by far the best educational method. Like I didn't know shit about any of the educational methods before I had kids either. There's no reason you should know. It doesn't make it. If you knew and didn't have kids, I'm like, this dude's a little weird. Like, why would you know that? But like the Acton is like entrepreneurial, right? Acton's better than public too. It's a very different style. It's more like the kids pick everything.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Right. Which is
based around failure. Right. Like
no. Not failure. It's based more around. It's like a student-led education. Yeah, it's called unschooling, right? And so, which is the original Montessori way. Like Montessori shifted and being stupid now, but the original Montessori was essentially interest-led education. Where the kid got to do whatever they were into. And then ideally in Montessori's, you teach the kid through what they're into. So if they're into building birdhouses, you can teach them the world through birdhouses, right? Waldorf is sort of like that, but there's a pretty clear sort of progression that they go through. I think it's the best of both worlds, and I love just every teacher I've ever met who's a true Waldorf teacher is like, I'm like, I wish that was my teacher. Yeah, I wish that person was my teacher. Like they're amazing.
Is there a reason you wanted to start your own versus like, is it just, do you have problems with the public education system now?
Well, so the Austin Waldorf, the one that's like known, we had Bishop who's out there, my son, my 7-year-old now, we had him in kindergarten there. And the teacher there was Miss Lee, amazing. Like literally, I'm like, I wish she was my grandmother. I want her to move in with us. Yeah. Like I loved her. And then COVID hit. Yeah. And the administration of that school went full lunatic woke. Oh, like, we're going to teach first graders that they're racist. And it's like, the fuck you are. Like, no. And so us and 50 other families broke off and started our own school, which is kind of in the Bee Caves area. Yeah, okay. And that school lasted 2 years, coming to an end this year. And that school is breaking up into 3 different parts because, like, there's a lot of reasons. But the main reason is, like, it was like, a bunch of people in Spicewood, a bunch of us in kind of West and Dripping, and then a bunch in Austin. And so like Bee Caves was like the closest to everybody, but it's like, we have to 30-minute commute every day. It's like, this sucks, right? And everyone else like, no, let's just have different schools, right? And so the dripping group put together, we bought 10 acres and we now have a school. And then the Spicewood group is already broken off. And then the other group is going to, I think, move closer into Austin.
Yeah. I've seen a huge shift into like, what do you call it? Like independent schools and like homeschooling and things. And I don't have any kids that I know of, but I also don't have any like ties to the school system, education system. From what I've noticed, it's vastly different from when I grew up. Yeah. You know, when I was growing up, there was no narrative or agendas or anything. It was just learn.
Well, there was
a copy and
paste.
It
was everyone was cool with it. You know, like stand up, say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, yeah.
That's a narrative and agenda. It's just like everyone's cool with it, so it's not like there's no controversy around it.
Well, it was just there was never this much emphasis on like sexuality and like that
shit's so ridiculous.
I just don't.
It's so beyond ridiculous. It's actually not. It's abusive grooming. It's fucked up. It's the whole fucking thing.
Seriously. I want to talk to someone that's like in favor of it, so I can hope that they can give me their understanding of it, because I genuinely don't get where it's like
I know a lot of those people. I'm just going to tell you, man, good luck not going over the table with them, man. I've never had anyone who seriously gets that, who can explain it in a way that isn't creepy pedophile shit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know too much about it, but
I know that field decently well.
Yeah, I mean, you got the.
It's messed up.
You started your own school. I would imagine you would know it. And
but Josh, like when you and I got out of school, even from like just a fundamental standpoint, were we really ready for adulthood?
Oh hell no! No. Dude, I moved to Maui, Hawaii, like 3 months after I graduated high school. Just wanted to get out, right? Just wanted to do that. I was so in over my head. I was barely 18. I didn't know how to survive. I didn't know how to apply for, an apartment or do anything. I stayed at my cousin's and I realized this is not going to work. Went right back to Idaho and my tail between my legs. And then that's kind of how I started training to go play football and do that stuff. And I definitely have had an issue with that aspect of like the school system, where they don't prepare kids. And then even when I first moved here, I was running the nutrition store, and I could not believe how many, because we'd hire a lot of like 18, 19-year-olds. They lacked problem solving skills, and they were so entitled. I don't get paid enough for this. I'm like, you agree to the wages. Like, what do you mean you don't get paid enough?
Get paid more somewhere else.
Yeah. So that's actually how I know Marlon. Marlon worked at a competitor store. And so he did the same thing as me, just for a different company. And that's one thing we always laugh about, is like, you just ask someone to do some basic shit and they'd be like, I'm not doing that. I'm like, you have to. They're like, will fire me. I'm like, okay, bye.
Okay, I will. Yeah. That was like the ongoing thing in that industry we were in, was like, we would make a good living, but you, like the way the business model worked, you couldn't pay the other guys much. And you were having to hire like competent, like 20 some odd year olds that needed 20 some odd year old money, not like 17-year-old money. But,
it was brutal.
That was all it was.
And so I guess what's going on now, are you working on any projects? Do you have anything long-term future goals?
I got a ranch in Dripping Springs.
That's it.
And I got 4 kids.
Oh, well, that's a full-time gig right there. Yeah. How old are each one?
7, 5, 3, and a newborn.
Oh wow! Hey, congrats! Yeah, there's been
a lot of sex to do. That.
Well, there was not a lot else to do in 2020, and then going into 2021. God, that was so awful and annoying. I
can't imagine I'd do it being single. Dude, that must have been the worst.
Well, it sucked because it was like everything awful happened the week prior to COVID. It was my buddy killed himself, and then going through the funeral and doing all that stuff, and then trying to balance my job, which I was doing consulting and stuff at the time.
Right.
And it happened at the beginning of March. So all of them backed out. So I didn't get paid, and then had like a nasty breakup. Then my car like took a shit on me, and like none of the credit card companies would work with me. So they were like, no, we're not going to defer. I'm like, you're deferring everyone else. And they're like, you don't qualify. And I'm like, so it was just like one thing after another. And, oh man. And then like everyone left, like a lot of people left. So yeah, I was going crazy, but I did start to learn how to appreciate, like you were saying, taking walks. Like I used to, every morning I would ride a bike. I bought a bike and I would go ride this trail not too far from here and find ways to like not be stuck at home because I go crazy and it's brutal. So with you know, you're saying you do jiu-jitsu as well. Is it just like, are you a hobbyist with it, or do you actually like try to go to tournaments and stuff?
No, I mean, I'm not a hobbyist, but I don't compete.
Okay.
Like, you know, I mean, I take it seriously. I'm a brown belt. Like, cool. I'm like on the path, but no, I'm not. Competition is like a whole separate. I got 4 kids, dude. That's my competition.
Yeah. Yeah. So are you just mainly doing just exercising, things like that, just to maintain health? You're not like trying to work towards anything?
I mean, look, the main so the main reason I train is health, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But like especially since COVID, like I definitely was not as like I didn't do I still do jiu-jitsu, but I didn't do any gun training or knife training, anything like that pre-COVID, because I'm American. I live in America. It's safe. Like I don't need to carry weapons with me everywhere. Like we're fine. I have one in the house, fine, whatever. But then like, you know, summer of 2020 hit and America went fucking crazy, and shit has not gotten less violent since. And so like I do knife training now at a place called Patterson Martial Arts with the main guy there is a Sayat Kali instructor, which is like kind of the best knife fighting thing. And so I do that. I have a gun range on my ranch, and I train like you know, I shoot there pretty consistently. Which is a cool part about being in Texas. You can just build a range and start shooting. It's like no problem. And so like it's one of the main reasons to stay in shape is like I hope things don't get worse. Yeah. But I am absolutely not going to just hope for the best. Right?
Yeah. It's my dad used to say, you know, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. And no, I'm with you. You know, I'm confident. I think people are getting kind of burned out on just divisiveness and fighting, but again, I would rather.
But when food shortages start, that's a whole.
Well, you got the ranch,
man. We're gonna be fine, but there are a lot of people who aren't gonna be fine. You know, and like those people are gonna go looking for food, man. And like I hope it doesn't come to that, but it really looks like it is.
Yeah, well,
in a shitty, scary way, man.
Yeah. Well, you know, I feel more confident in this state than I would in somewhere like California.
100%. Oh, no, if you're in California, have fun.
Enjoy the apocalypse. You asked for it.
Exactly.
Well, Tucker, where can people find you? Social medias, websites? Like,
don't find me. Don't come to my ranch. I'm not.
Don't look you up. Don't ask.
He's lying about Dripping Springs.
He's in Nevada.
No, the cool part about Dripping is it's so expensive now. And so, like, it sucked when we bought there, but we bought, like, you know, long enough ago where it's like, man, I don't even know if I could afford my ranch now. And I was one of the assholes coming and buying, driving the price up. And so, like, you can't, and they're not issuing any more building permits. And so it's like just if you're there, you're there. If you're not, have fun.
Oh, man.
Makes you want to sell, but it's like, where do you go?
Yeah, dude, exactly. Seriously. Yeah. I know, like I bought trucks right like the beginning of COVID, and people are like, "I'll give you $100,000 over ass or whatever." And I'm like, "Nah, man, that's all right." Like, because what am I gonna buy? Yeah, right. There's no replacement. So if you want to read stuff that I write, go to tuckermax.com. Otherwise, leave me alone.
I think that's the only time someone's ever said that. I always get people promoting them, and then this was the first guy that's like, "Don't find me. Read my stuff, but don't reach out to me.
Don't reach out. Don't message me on Instagram. I don't go into the requested messages. Now y'all can get it going.
Yeah. Well, I feel lucky then. Perfect. But no, man, I appreciate you coming out. I was really excited. You know, we'll definitely have to run it back, and we're always doing stuff, so I'll keep you in the loop. Cool. We always have some fun. But Marlon, you know what to do. Take us out, good sir.